What's up, everybody? This is Grant at Cause Artist. Today we are chatting with Alex Stephany, the founder of Beam. And Beam is an amazing platform that allows us as individuals to crowdfund and help homeless individuals get back their lives and gain skills to get a job in the workforce. I don't want to go through how it works because Alex does a great job of that in the interview. But essentially, the idea is Beam helps individuals, they work with organizations to find individuals that are capable of being trained and being educated in a certain skill that they want to do. So they sit down with a homeless individual and they ask them what their goals are and what they want to achieve. And through that, they match them with a company or a skills training organization to get them trained. And that training comes from us as a community for as little as $5,000 or 5,000 pounds. We can, change a person's life. So if everybody, puts up 25 bucks or 10 bucks, right, we can sort of end homelessness ourselves without sort of depending on anything else. And so it's a really fascinating idea, I think, and fascinating conversation about how technology has been made for, and like Alex alludes to in the interview, technology has really been made and innovated for people who have the ability to buy things, right? For people with higher level skills and training and, basically middle income and up. The Ubers and Netflixes and eBays and Amazon, all these technologies are really made for people with wages, right? That can really spend money and enjoy these amazing technologies. And Alex has a background in a tech startup that has raised a ton of money, millions of dollars. And he took that philosophy and said, why can't we build technology for the people that are the most disadvantaged in our community? Just as good as technology as we all use, why can't we create that for people that are less fortunate than us at this moment in their lives? So I think it's an amazing platform that can scale and really help every community in the entire world. And I think that's the mission that Alex and his team are on, and the mission that they strive to achieve. So I think we all deal with homelessness in our cities, and we all feel like there's something we can do. But, with the cashless economy, sometimes I grab, 5 extra ones, and I always have them on me in case I do see somebody I can help out. But still, what does $5 do when a person needs much more than that, right? Even if it's just there has to be a better way to help individuals out of the state that they're in. So I always deal with it personally. I wish I always carried more cash, but I'm very bad at it. I'm very, very bad at carrying cash. And homeless individuals don't have a Square app or something where you can donate via a debit or credit card or something. So I think that this is an alternative and something that could scale at a massive level that can help every single community in the world and can really allow us as individuals to give that $5 via the Beam platform. But if it's 1,000 people giving $5, we can literally change that person's life and not change it where we're just giving people money. Right, that never works. We see that doesn't work, but it actually educates them and gives them the skills they need to be an electrician, right? To be a plumber, to be something that they feel proud of, and then they can give back to society and have economic value, and that just uplifts every community. So I really hope you guys enjoy the interview. I hope you take some time out to visit the Beam platform and check out Alex's TED Talk. That really kind of encapsulates everything. But do it after you listen to this, of course. But hope everybody's having a great day and have a great week. And we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye. The first thing that I usually like to start with is an individual's journey on how they sort of come to find their life's work, so to speak. And right now, it seems like Beam is sort of your life's work right now, and it's something that you're truly passionate about. So what was the sort of catalyst for starting Beam?
So about 3 years ago, I became friends with a homeless man who would sit on the steps of my local tube station, and I would buy this guy cups of coffee and pairs of socks. But I could kind of see his condition really getting worse before my eyes. at one point he disappeared for about 7 weeks. And then when he reappeared, he looked absolutely terrible. His kind of big beard had been shaven off, but he just looked like 10, maybe 15 years older. And I went up to him and I said, "What's happened? Where have you been?" And he says, "Been in hospital, had a heart attack." So we kind of spoke and, walked home. I was just walking home. It just hit me so hard that, I've been trying to help this guy. Probably other people have been trying to help him as well. And yet he was in a much worse condition than when we first met. And why did that need to be the case? Just seemed like a massive failure of coordination on our part. Clearly what this guy needed wasn't another cup of coffee. It was the skills, the confidence, the support, so he could get into work and buy himself the coffees, the socks, the 100 other things that we need in our day-to-day lives. And when we first met, he told me that he'd been kind of out of work longer than he could remember. And that really struck me as a tragic and unnecessary thing, because sure, he was definitely a troubled man with challenges, but like opportunities for him in an economy, particularly an economy that is pretty thriving with pretty low unemployment like we have, unfortunately, in the UK. So I sort of thought, well, actually, if he needs all of those things, it's going to cost more than a cup of coffee. But, the next thought was, what if we all just chip in? Like, what could we crowdfund these things? And my background is running tech companies. And the last company I ran, we did a crowdfunding round. And we've now raised more than £10 million through crowdfunding for this business. I just thought, well, that's a lot of money. Well, actually, maybe we can just crowdfund a much smaller sum of money to make effectively life-changing investments in people that's going to matter so much more. And so that was the initial idea. And then I began reading as much as I could about homelessness. And the first thing that really shocked me was that for every one person we see on the streets like that man, there are 30 other in homeless hostels and other types of homeless accommodation. So I thought, wow, this problem is much, much worse than I thought. And this big group of people out there that I don't know about, that have very poor economic opportunities, but also like they might be quite helpable, because it might be very unstable and it might be pretty unpleasant, but like they do have a roof over their heads. They have a place to sleep. They have a place where they could, take a shower and charge a phone. Right. So I went and I met as many homeless people as possible. And I met as many people working in homeless charities as possible, from caseworkers to CEOs. And I basically said, look, I have an idea. Can we crowdfund training for homeless people and then support them into skilled work? And some of the charities were really interested in this idea. So fast forward a couple of months, I'm in a homeless hostel in South London, and I'm sat opposite a man called Tony who wants to become an electrician, but he can't afford the training. And I explain how this model will work, and he listens very carefully, and he says nothing the entire meeting, apart from one time he plucks up the courage to say, "Alex, can I ask you something?" And I say, "Yes, Tony, you can ask me anything." And he goes, "I don't understand." "What don't you understand, Tony?" He goes, "I don't understand. Why would anyone help me?" And I look at him and I say, honestly, I can't promise that they will. I'm not going to make that promise to you, but I think they will. I think there are a lot of people out there who care about people like you. And I think if we make it easy for them to help you, I think we're going to see just what a pool of human compassion and empathy exists in our community. And so he kind of looks at me like I'm a bit crazy. And he trusts me enough to give this a go. And we visit the training centers in London. We meet this guy who would teach Tony to be an electrician if we can raise the money. And then I decide, okay, well, we've got to get this campaign funded. So we have this basic website, but he needs to raise about £3,500. So I pick up the phone and speak to some journalists, and it becomes a pretty major national news story. It becomes one of the top stories on Sky News, one of the top stories on BBC News. It's covered like at least 20 times in the UK. It's covered all around the world, actually. And we raise the money that Tony needs. And what happens next? Tony starts his electrical training. Tony gets his electrical certificate. And today, for the first time in about 20 years, he's in work, working on commercial building sites as an electrician in London, earning good money, life transformed in his own place. And what we've been doing for the past 2 years at Beam is basically building both the technology and the operational model to help ultimately millions of people like Tony in cities all around the world.
When you speak with certain individuals, Tony seemed, and maybe this is totally wrong, but he seemed to know what he wanted to do, right? Is that normally the case? That seems like it would make the process a little bit easier if they know what they want to do. You can match them up with a company, nonprofit, to help that happen. But if a person doesn't know what they want to do, right? Like you said, if somebody's out of work 20 years, technology is extremely passed them by, right? There's some other hurdles you need to get over if an electrician is not sort of
Sure.
what they're. So how does that
Yeah,
process work?
it's a great question. And about half of people know what they want to do. It might be
Awesome.
because they've always wanted a job. It might be because they did this job before some kind of disruption in their life. Or maybe there's a role model in their family and they've always wanted to be a carpenter or an accountant or whatever. Some people are less clear, and we do a session with them, which helps them kind of discover what it is that they could be doing and presents them with some options, and we sort of educate them about what might be out there. What's also really useful is we've now supported people into sort of 43, I think it is, career pathways.
Wow.
So people can actually look on the website and really be inspired by people and go, well, here are I think there's like 17 people now who've become electricians. They can read their stories and they can, form a kind of a view on, okay, this person had this kind of background and they've done this and that's worked out pretty well for them. But so there's a sort of education process that goes on. We also do a kind of a task with them where we ask them about what is most important, what are they looking to get out of this experience. And it can be increased earning power, it can be confidence, it can be support networks, it can be learning new skills, and there's a couple of other things as well. Effectively then sort of rank those things. And that again can drive prioritization, because if we know that learning new skills is super important to them, and maybe making money is less important to them, that can help steer the conversation. And for me, Beam is working so well, and it's now working 80% of the time to get really hard to help people into skill work. And the reason it is working so well is because it's this kind of hybrid model that has a lot of technology and data that's driving it, and that is creating a lot of scalability and a lot of efficiency. But at root, it's a very personalized model. Now, if we were working with you, Grant, we would do something quite straightforward, which is we would sit down with you, we would get to know you and the risks in your life, and we'd plan around those risks, whether they're mental health or substance misuse or whatever they are. And then the second thing we do is we'll build a personalized career plan that is built around your strengths and your ambitions. And this is all predicated on the idea that there is no such thing as the right job for everyone.
Right.
Everyone will do really poorly in certain jobs, and I know this from my experience, and you probably do from experience, but absolutely thrive in other jobs. And so there needs to be this level of personalization if we're going to A, get people into jobs, and B, make sure that they remain in those jobs and they thrive in those jobs.
How difficult was it? It seemed like it might be, you said you went to nonprofits and charities, and they sort of responded pretty well, right? How did companies respond in the same way? Was it more difficult to get companies on board with this stuff? Because I mean, those are really who you need to really step up and be like, yes, we will, hire somebody who hasn't been, in work in 20 years and train them. And I mean, they're really taking the lead on a lot of this stuff. It would seem like.
I think companies have been really supportive, and we're contacted by companies who want to work with us pretty much every day now.
Nice.
For me, the conversation is not around, please be a nice, socially responsible company and hire this homeless person. That is not the conversation we have ever had with businesses. The conversation is, you have a ton of open roles that you cannot fill, and we have some great talent, and they are ready and raring to go, and they are highly trained and highly skilled, and they can come to your business and they can add value to your business, commercial value to your business, and they can add social value to your workforce and diversity and skills, and make your business both a more profitable business, but also a richer business in the broader sense of the term.
When you first like, Tony is a really great example, right? Because I mean, it's kind of beautiful that he was sort of the first one that had the experience, and it sort of went ideally. It seems like, right? He knew what he wanted to do. It seemed like working with, there's usually always open electrician positions, correct? Was it as smooth as it seemed to be, talking to Tony, and he seemed to be cerebral and kind of understood the concept? And then was he going to training like a month later? Like, what was the process of, like, in the office, we have a strategic plan, now let's put it in action to getting a job?
So each person on the platform has a support specialist who's an employee of Beam. And again, super transparent, that specific individual is shown on each person's campaign.
Okay.
So there's this personal human relationship that exists between every person that we help and someone in our Beam team. So they are responsible for supporting that individual on their journey. Now, some people are easier to help and some people are harder to help, and that's fine. But I think all of this is underpinned by the belief that if you give people the right tools and you give people a very personalized service, then they can often go a really long way by themselves. Now, all of these individuals have peaks to climb, and for some of them, they're kind of hills, and others are they're big, horrible mountains. And it's thunderstorming and there's rocks and it's dark, and that is the challenge that is in front of them given where they've come from. Now, I think too often we've been, as a society, been working with individuals like this and go, okay, off you go, here are some flip-flops, good luck. Now, for us, it's about actually giving them the great tools to do this themselves, to make this climb by themselves, because overwhelmingly, it's them that are going to succeed through this model. Give people some flip-flops and ask them to climb a mountain in bad weather. Most people aren't going to be able to do that. Give them the right tools, give them the boots, give them the rucksack, give them the water bottle, give them what they need, then people are going to do that. And I think where we are right now is we've invested hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars into building technology services and products, frankly, for people like me, for people with privilege who can, purchase these goods and services and make the founders and the VCs lots of money.
Yep.
The problem with that is that we've massively underinvested in providing technology for people who actually need these things much more. And this big divide has opened up. Now, first and foremost, of course, that's not right, and it's not fair to the people that we should be serving, who is everyone in our community. But secondly, it's also economically irrational, because all of us end up paying the price in terms of underskilled workforces, healthcare costs, taxation costs, all kinds of costs and taxes that we have to meet as a society because we're not providing the right services to everyone in our society. It's only superficially a money-saving exercise. It's actually completely economically irrational. And as an example of that, we work with people who've been out of work for years, decades, sometimes their whole life. And for a few £1,000s, for less than $5,000, we're able to support that individual to get trained, to provide a valuable service in the local economy, and of course, ultimately to pay tax. And that is a fantastic investment macroeconomically. Yeah. That is a very, very good ROI, if you like, economically. So I'm really excited about us finally beginning to build technology and services that are every bit as good as you or I might be receiving from an Uber or a Netflix for much more disadvantaged people in our society.
Yeah, it's an absolute beautiful statement. When you first got introduced to the gentleman that had a heart attack and you were sort of, talking with, when you left and you said, there's something that I can kind of do here. I have a background in technology. I've built companies. I understand crowdfunding, all these different things that ultimately went into Beam to make it what it is now. When you left those first sort of weeks leading up to actually starting Beam, did you assess sort of the homeless issue? Did you go more in depth? It's like, let's look at London as a whole, right? It's like, what are the problems? What are the high areas of homelessness? Or is it like, I just want to do this for this one guy? Or did you really look at it, assess the entire sort of landscape of, was the big idea immediate, I guess? Or was it just like, let's just help out this one guy?
I knew that there are people like Tony, and I knew roughly how many people were involved, and this was a big problem. And I just wanted to test this, frankly, really sort of sense approach. Sit down with people, understand the risks, understand what they want to be doing, remove all of the financial barriers to them doing the job that they want to be doing, and help them out along the way. It's a really common sense idea. And I just wanted to see if we could do that for one person, and then kind of take it, one step at a time, really. I did, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I certainly spent a good amount of time kind of Google reading and stuff like that. But I certainly couldn't claim either, then or now, frankly, to be, an expert on housing policy or welfare benefits or politics or homelessness compared to people who've been working in this sector for, years and decades. We're lucky to have some great advisors who have, do have years and decades of experience in this space. There were people from the kind of homelessness trade body in the UK, which is called Homeless Link, who were, offered some fantastic advice. There are some chief executives of some homelessness charities in the UK, like Connection at St. Martin's and Thames Reach. And more recently, Shelter have been offering some, fantastic advice too. It's a very collaborative approach, Beam. We certainly don't have all of the answers. What we're trying to do is stitch things a little better together. So, it's really a partnership model. We're partnered with more than 30 charities who refer people to the platform. Then the public comes along and crowdfunds their campaigns, whether it's to become an electrician or a beautician or an accountant or whatever. Then training providers do the training. Then companies hire these individuals. And very often government is paying us to provide the service. So, there's a whole range of stakeholders there. And for us, we see this fantastic opportunity to make progress on a problem as complex as homelessness when we can get everyone kind of working together and everyone playing to their strength.
That was actually my next question, was what the, from a policy standpoint and a governmental standpoint, how have they reacted? Because I think you're doing such an amazing job at solving a problem that would be beneficial to politicians, right? It would be beneficial to the local municipalities. So what has their response been like? I guess you alluded to that you do work with them at some capacity. So, was that relationship hard to build, or was it right when it came out, they were just like, let's do something?
I think that government has been very, very welcoming of our work, both at kind of a local level and at a national level. And I think, we were invited to Downing Street maybe 3 times, and there is a real interest. I have to it's very easy, obviously, to sort of sit back and slag off politicians, but there's a lot of people in government and in our civil service who, profoundly care about making things better. And the system makes it hard for done in the way they would like.
Yep.
And obviously the UK political landscape has just been dominated by Brexit for a few years now, which is, makes it somewhat challenging. But I think government has been, very, very welcoming and is very aware that they don't necessarily have all of the answers. And as I was saying before, nor do we. But I think that when government can work with tech startups and, collaborate with them in a really smart way, I think that's a great way of getting small amounts of input into lots of output. Because, one of the things that startups are really great at is going a damn long way with very little fuel in the tank. And, we've built our technology and now processed about 20,000 donations, built, what I believe to be is a really pioneering model that has massive promise to support homeless people and other disadvantaged groups into stable, skilled work. And we've done that for less than $500,000.
Yeah.
Which is just obviously crumbs, shrapnel compared to the sorts of budgets that, the government is working with every day. So I think it's really exciting actually to see how government is beginning to open its eyes to the potential of startups, or what's called GovTech sometimes. So, technology built in part to interface with government. I'm actually speaking at a conference in Paris next week called the Gov Summit, which I'm sure would interest you if you're able to get there. And it's run by a British company called Public.io. And it's really exciting to see this kind of whole community beginning to come together around GovTech and, what digital can offer governments and obviously indirectly taxpayers and citizens. And so many of the government structures we have in place got built and sort of solidified pre-internet. And the internet has such capacity to improve so much about how we work with government. And, we're now at this crunch point really where, many people are challenging democracy itself. And how politicians regain trust with the public in many cases has been dented so much through digital platforms. I think digital platforms of different kinds are kind of going to be the way to solve many of these problems as well. So, whether that is, people don't like paying tax, but people would mind it less if they could see a to the pound breakdown of where their tax went. And they could say, okay, well, maybe I don't agree with defense budget, but okay, so, 3 cents in the dollar has gone on that, and then I can click on what the Ministry of Defense are trying to achieve and what they're using that money for, and
Yep.
why they're doing it, and why they think that actually investing in, nuclear weaponry is a good way of keeping us safe. At the moment, nothing like that really exists. So there's this enormous dislocation, there's this enormous opacity, and I think and hope that some of these things will change. One of the slightly crazy ideas I have is that each government department should have a CTO, not a chief technology
100%.
officer, a chief transparency. No, wait, right. Not a chief technology officer. They should have that too. A chief transparency officer, someone whose job it is to gradually, elegantly, sensitively help some of these government departments to become more transparent in the way that they're working and to ultimately regain trust with the public.
No, that's I think that there's so much there, and I think that the one thing you alluded to was, people don't like paying taxes, but the more people who are coming into the workforce that pay taxes will eventually actually lower taxes for everybody. So I think it serves as there's all these ancillary purposes that what Beam is doing can sort of indirectly do, right? Whether it's more tax revenue into the system. If GovTech continues to grow and mature, then that money we hopefully can be used more wisely, right, and allocated better. I think that's the real issue. That's the real thing that we see, that we think GovTech can do. And transparent, you can do is say, hey, why is money going here? It's not working. The data tells us this is not, we don't want to allocate money to this anymore. We need to allocate it to this. It produces this ROI of impact, tax revenue, whatever that return on investment is. There's the new CTO will decide on, working with others can decide on what you need to allocate, because that's the thing, like you said, we have so much tax revenue, and the issue has always been just allocating it correctly. That's always been the problem. I don't think politicians are bad, and like you said, I mean, you see it day to day, month to month. There's some truly inspiring politicians that care, that really, they don't, but they might not be a tech background, right? They might not understand the ability of some of these technologies and what it can do, from, allocating money correctly, or crowdfunding to solve a homeless issue, right? But you could also crowdfund to fix your roads, right? You could also crowdfund to, get books into schools, or right, whatever it may be. There's a plethora of things that technology can do for governments and local communities. But sorry, I go on a soapbox sometimes, but I think that
yeah, totally.
The transparency officer is interesting, and you said you were going to go to Paris. Are there other sort of communities or governments, countries even, reaching out to you, trying to figure out how they can, one, duplicate the model, or work with you to create something like that in their own city?
We're beginning to have those conversations, but we're pretty focused on London right now. But, very interested. I'm actually going to be in New York and Boston the next couple of weeks, and we'll be meeting a few people there and just having some sort of early conversations. We're sort of remaining open-minded. We think it has potential in other cities for sure. But, very focused on executing it here. I think one of the things is like the technology, crowdfunding platform. Yes, there's quite a few quirks with ours, but like, it's not super hard to build that.
Right.
But really, the very, very challenging aspect of this is building the operational model that underpins it all, that is working with vulnerable people, and doing that in a way that is safe and scalable and considers all of the complexities and individualities of people's life. There is so much edge case, if you like, when you're providing the service. There's so many permutations of different setups you could have with people's, benefit status or training status or work status or health. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a Rubik's Cube. And so there's a lot more that we can do to improve the operational model. And we definitely don't want to be kind of distracted. Ultimately, we want to build, the best employability service for disadvantaged people in the world. And we can, London is a city to be in, to work on that.
Yeah, how I see it is that you're almost trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because this is a pretty big statement, but you're almost not trying to, but it's just happening. You're disrupting the social services industries, so to speak, where at least here in America, social service is a very difficult, job to
Mm.
be in, right? You don't get paid a lot. You're dealing with very stressful situations and people in, very, very stressful lives, right? That have a lot going on. But
Yeah. Well,
I think, but
we don't see it that way actually, because we are providing a really valuable service for those individuals on the front line in social services.
mhm.
So they refer people to us using an online referral
Right,
form.
right.
And what we're allowing them to do is essentially, as you say, they're under a lot of pressure. They have big workloads. A lot of them are not paid nearly what they should be for the great work that they're
Yep.
doing. And we exist to help them to achieve their goals for the people they're working with. So they can refer people to us, and we will help get those individuals essentially into work and back on their feet. And it's a way for them to actually shrink down their caseload and redirect their resources to people that are perhaps more chronically in need and aren't quite ready for that next step to go into training and work. So for them, it's really it's a great service. And it's also on a human level, they got into that job because they want to see people succeed. They want to see people help. And for us to come along and help them to help
Yeah.
their people
Yeah.
progress is something that they find really fulfilling. So, they will follow the updates. Maybe they work with someone when this individual was in a really bad place. And then through their support, that individual got to be in a better place. And then they refer them to Beam, and they watch that individual get trained, get into work, really flourish through this model. And it's a big experience for them as well, because they're sometimes these individuals' primary support network and, biggest cheerleader in the world.
You almost accidentally built the product for them. It's like you kind of built it to help, to help homeless individuals and help people support that. But then the platform is also becoming a great product in the lives of people in social services or people working at these shelters or nonprofits. I mean, technology for them is just as important, right? Because you said they're on the front lines of trying to deliver the people that they think deserve this chance and can actually fulfill this opportunity. So it's just another way I think the platform you guys have built is serving so many different areas, whether intentional or unintentional, right? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be in 2-3 years, there's going to be another area where it's like, oh, this is kind of impacting this area too. And we kind of didn't realize it in the beginning, but this is kind of what it matured into. So I'll end on the last question, and I like to maybe look at a longer term approach. I know that's difficult to do sometimes, but over the next sort of 5 years or maybe a decade, is there a sort of North Star or vision or mission that you really, really want to get to say, we have been successful in what we are doing?
Yeah, well, how many years do you say I have?
Let's just do like the next decade. Let's see if that'll work, or 5 to 10 years.
Well, I think we need to be working well outside of London. I imagine the service will exist in quite a few countries around the world, and will be, very integrated into the system in those cities that is supporting disadvantaged people to move forward with their lives and become both socially integrated and economically productive. And I also think we'll be working with probably other disadvantaged groups outside of homeless people. And I think we'll also, have built I hope we will have built a really, really trusted in the area of social mobility. And what we're trying to do really is pioneer a service for government that I call social mobility as a service. If City Hall in, I don't know, Marseille or Phoenix, Arizona, or Sao Paulo, or it doesn't really matter, they have some money and they want to take that money and they want to support people who are struggling in their community to get trained, to get employed in local businesses, then they should be able to purchase that like they can purchase, paper or vehicles from General Motors. And we need to be absolutely world-class service at providing that. And, I think we do that by focusing first and foremost on the people that we're helping. And as long as we keep that real laser focus on providing just the most amazing service for them and treating them, as I said before, just as well as an Uber or a Netflix would treat someone who's a millionaire, then, I think we're going to stay on the right track.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. I mean, it's been a real treat. Like I said, I've been following you guys for a while, and it's really inspiring to see what you've built so far. And best of luck to you and the team. And it's truly just a great vision and mission that you have, and I see it just hopefully expanding, to a global platform, and we see. We see homelessness sort of eradicated like a disease or something that we just solve and figure it out, and we have full employment by those who can work, and then full employment by people in the streets, and we no longer have to sort of deal with this issue. So kudos to you and your team, and best of luck.
Bro, well, look, thanks so much for the kind words. I really enjoyed chatting, Grant, and stay in touch. Thanks for your time.